Welcome to Men Pursuing More. I'm your host, Roger Moppin. I believe every man has the potential to push past his limits and strive for something greater. Whether you're a former athlete who is looking for what's next, a professional pushing through the daily grind, or someone simply ready to break through life's toughest challenges, if you're ready to step into the pursuit of something more, your pursuit begins now. All right, welcome back to Men Pursuing More. I'm your host, Roger Moppin, and today we have Omar McMillan joining us. And before we dive into it, favorite all-time team?
Ooh, that's tough. Any Showtime Lakers. Any Showtime Los Angeles Lakers.
All right, love it. Lakers,
between them and the Chicago Bulls, but it's the Showtime Lakers.
Okay, Showtime Lakers. Favorite all-time player?
Of course, Magic Johnson.
Of course.
Irvin Magic Johnson, yeah. The Magic Man.
And then the biggest highlight playing hoops. Just give us one, maybe a quick highlight.
I had the chance to walk to the free throw line in the state championship in 1993 and make the two winning free throws for us to win state championship in my high school team.
Amen. Hey, we'll just stop right there with the podcast. All right, let's get into it now and tell the listeners about, I know you grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then some of the highlights and challenges growing up in Milwaukee.
You know, as I get older, I look back and say the best thing that could have happened to me is growing up in the situation that I grew up in Milwaukee. Grew up in low-income housing, what we would call the projects. Was the only child for probably a good 8 years of my life. And then I had my mom, my stepdad, who I actually call my dad, my two younger sisters, and my younger brother. And I think the biggest challenge is that I had to grow up early. We grew up in this neighborhood where I seen a lot very young, from gang violence to drug dealing to prostitution and all different things, that kind of abuse in homes and different things like that I saw. And that was just a matter of walking to the park every day. And so I think a good portion of my life, I had to, if you ever remember the Tom and Jerry cartoons where he has the angel on one side and kind of the devil on the other side, I had to basically live that life because my mom was a very God-fearing person. Anytime that you walked into our house, you might see her at the kitchen table, deep into her Bible. And I had a dad who he was a hustler, right? So you had to decide which path you were going to go down for a certain extent. But thank God that my mom was a strong parent, praying person. So I kind of, no pun intended, dodged a lot of bullets due to that. And I was able to have a pretty successful high school years there, go on to college, and grow into and be the person that I am today.
Take us back to, I know you shared with me when we talked a few weeks ago about that 40-minute bus ride. You remember you had a high school in your area, but you decided.
That was an adventure in itself. I came from, I was a pretty decent middle school player. Right. We used to have this middle school league called the Xerox League, named after the Xerox copier. They were the sponsors of it. And you would get high school coaches to come to these games and watch us play. And still, my mentor and my friend today, Coach James Gordon, was at one of these events, and he's came and said, "I need you to come to Washington High School." And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, my mom is not going to let me go to Washington High School. That is like not even close to our house, right? So I remember presenting it to her and saying, "Hey, can I go to Washington High School?" And she gave me this look like, "You can go right up the street." So I had a driving distance of 5 minutes to Custard High School, which I think now is named Barack Obama High School. I had another corner that if you went a little bit north, it was about 10 minutes, Madison High School. And then I had Marshall, that was probably about 15 minutes. And then I had Benson, that was 15 minutes. And I skipped over all those schools just so I can go be a pergola at Washington High School. So that bus ride every morning that was the way that I got my workout in the morning, because you had to be up bright and early, because if you missed that 6 a.m. bus, you was late for school. And the ironic thing is it was a 6:01, but the 6 o'clock one was the express one. The 6:01, man, you probably got to school around about third hour. Yeah, but it was an enjoyable bus ride. I learned a lot on those bus rides, but it taught me kind of responsibility and made me an early riser as well too.
When we talked a few weeks ago, you talked about, and share the listeners about color TV.
So we were probably one of the first people in the neighborhood to get a color TV, a Zenith color TV floor model, right? And we thought we were the big deal around the neighborhood with that. But soon, I don't know if they wasn't making them properly then. I think it probably less than a year the color went out, the actual picture went out. So in the black households, what we do is we don't throw away TVs. We just stack them up on top of each other. Just get a new one and we stack it up. So we had moved this TV down to the basement area before we used it as an entertainment system. And I would try to tinker with it a little bit. And I had to be about maybe 9 or 10 years old or something like that. And I was tinkering with it. But I also had my Dr. J Nerf basketball hoop downstairs. And I just happened to turn on the TV one day. And you don't have ESPN, we didn't have the cable or ESPN and all the different basketball stations, whatever, because I probably only had CBS at that particular time. So I just happened to turn the TV on and the Bucks were playing the Lakers. And I don't remember if it was, what's his name, Brent Musburger or whatever the commentator was, but the job that he was doing to introduce me to Magic Johnson. I had never seen Magic before. I had never seen the Lakers play before. But the way that he commentated and described Magic as this flamboyant, always smiling, no look passes. And I wish we could go down memory lane and like they do in the movies, and you show me imitating and emulating all these things that I was hearing. So when I finally got that opportunity to actually see Magic on a actual TV that had a picture on it, man, I just fell in love with basketball, and I fell in love with the Lakers. And I said, a person like that looks like he enjoys playing so much, I want to be like that person. So that broken down TV and that commentator and Magic Johnson made me love basketball.
He's got magic, no doubt about
Yeah,
that.
he does.
He does.
Yep.
Hey, now share with us, with the listeners, your decision to attend Bethany Lutheran JUCO in Minnesota, and why it was challenging in making a decision, any obstacles along the way in making that decision to go to Bethany.
I guess the fortunate and unfortunate thing is I didn't have, in our household, with me being the oldest, and my mom and dad were not college graduates. So I didn't really have a lot of experience when it came to picking a college, picking a school. Even the whole doing the financial aid package thing was like difficult to get done. Like I said, I was a pretty decent basketball player. I don't know what they give you stars. I might have been a maybe 2 or 3 star athlete. I wasn't all in nation. So I was getting pretty good offers out of high school. I had several Division I offers. Really didn't know what Division II and Division III was. I probably had some offers in that area, but I didn't understand that. I just knew the names. I didn't even understand what Division I meant. One of the things that kind of impacted my decision was that I had just recently lost my stepfather to cancer. And for the last, I want to say, 6 years prior to that, I stepped into the role of being the man of the house, because as my stepfather was dealing with this, it was almost to the point where he went back almost to an infant stage. So the amount of care that had to be taken care of him relied upon my mom and I, and mostly her. And when he passed away, I hesitated on a lot of decisions in regards to where I would go to school. So I had UC Santa Barbara, I had Tennessee Chattanooga, I had UW Milwaukee, and I had all these. So I think I was just about to pull the trigger and go to UW Milwaukee to stay home. And UW Milwaukee had a terrible season the year before. And I remember the assistant coach, who was also one of the assistant coach on my high school team, told me, man, you know what? The coach wants to go a different route. He wanted to bring in some JUCO players. And if we were to take you, you'll probably have to be a walk-on. So I was devastated by that and I had a couple other avenues, but Arizona, California. And I'm like, I can't leave my mom behind. I got to stay at home. Ran into one of my good friends, my best friend. All his kids are my godchildren. And I was the best man in his wedding. He was the best man in my wedding. We hadn't seen each other in a couple years because he had moved out of the neighborhood and we were at the ACT. And he said, hey, let's go to Bethany Lutheran College. I said, man, there's no way that I'm going to be able to get into Bethany Lutheran College because a couple weeks prior, a couple of my friends were at the college fair and we ran into the coach. And this coach must have did his research because he knew our name. He knew all of us by name, knew all of us by face. And he said, hey, what do I need to do to get you at Bethany Lutheran College? So two of my friends, boisterous, kind of bad mouth Bethany, we ain't no way we going to Bethany. And I'm standing there with my eyes big as cup saucers and saying, man, what are y'all doing? So I tell my friend Bukata this, and Bukata said, man, I got it. I tell him that you want to come. He tells the coach that I want to come. So the coach says, okay, I'm going to take you guys out to dinner. Out to breakfast. I said, okay, all right. So he tells us when, and I missed the breakfast, the recruiting breakfast. And I missed it because usually my mom would get off their third shift job at this time, and she decided to take a double. So I had no car to get there. So now no cell phone because we didn't have cell phones at the time. And I'm like, it's no way this guy is going to want me because I done had two incidents where he's like, why would I recruit this guy? He called me and still wanted me there. I went there, and I probably, out of my 4 years of playing, these were two of the best years that I have ever played basketball. Me and Coach Art Westfall, we still talk at least once or twice a month. He's one of my mentors as well, too. So I'm so glad that I guess those incidents happen because he still reminds me of that every time we get together for coffee or breakfast. Is you going to show up? And a great experience. Love Mankato. Had a great time, great connections, and made some wonderful friends down there as well, too.
And then from Bethany, then I think you and your best friend decided to attend another
St.
college.
Scholastica.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Together. Just share us that journey from Bethany, St. Scholastica, and then onward after that, the Twin Cities, and then eventually getting married and having a family.
So it was somewhat of a similar situation as getting to Bethany. My good friend Bukata was a phenomenal point guard. He was highly recruited out of Bethany as well, too. And I had 2 pretty decent years as well at Bethany. But the problem was most of the schools that was recruiting him didn't want a shooting guard over a wing. They didn't need one. And most of the schools that was recruiting me wasn't really looking for a point guard. St. Scholastica and Coach Jim Dacker were recruiting us hard. But that wasn't my number one option. Number one, it's too cold in Duluth. So that was strike one. I went on a college visit with some shorts on. It was 80 in Mankato. By the time we got to Duluth, I had to have on a coat, a hat, a glove, and it was still spring. So that wasn't going over well. But we wanted to continue, right? We wanted to go somewhere where we could play and continue to affect the game of basketball in a positive way. So we ended up at St. Scholastica, and it was outside of the basketball, it was a great experience that I think I needed to have as I was going out into the adult world. It was one of those situations where everything that I learned at Bethany and everything I had learned growing up in Milwaukee, it all had to come together at that particular time. Because I'll be honest, those years at St. Scholastica were tough to start off. One, being cold, and two, I didn't get to play right away when I got up there. I had to take a red shirt year due to some credits not transferring from Bethany. So that having to sit out and deal with that adversity was a gift and a curse because one, I had never sat out. So I had to watch and observe. But at the same time, too, me sitting out was probably one of the best things because my game and my attitude improved tremendously to the point where I was a two-time player of the year at St. Scholastica, as well as all conference and all those different things. And I was able to get out of there with a degree in education. During that road back in Mankato, that's when I met my first wife, and we ended up dating for a while before we got married and had a beautiful daughter named Alexa, who in a matter of weeks is going to make me grandfather number two, my second granddaughter.
Congratulations.
In about the next
That's
couple of
awesome.
weeks. Appreciate that. And then with that St. Scholastica, I was able to open some doors to come down here and teach. What some of the rules are is when you go student teaching, you can only go in a 75-mile radius. But somehow I convinced St. Scholastica to let me come down to the cities and the Minneapolis area to student teach, which I thought was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And I dealt with some adversity there as well, too, becoming a student teacher. And I always say accidentally, or being in the right place at the right time, end up getting hired in Minneapolis, and then being in the right place at the right time, end up getting hired in Richfield Public Schools. So it was quite the journey.
Now, share with the listeners. Yeah, it's quite a story about them allowing you to, because if you go, what'd you say, like 50 miles? If you go 50 miles to the south of Duluth, there's
I think you got Hinckley. It might be, yeah, no, it's no sillies there. So I just convinced him because one of the things is when I originally went to college, I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted nothing to do with education. I wanted to actually be a pediatrician. I wanted to go into the medical field. But I think you and I spoke about this as well, too, is one thing that, and believe me, I am not parent of the year, but one thing I think that should be in the Parent 101 book is that raise your kids like you want them to grow up to be, right? If you are raising your kid to be a doctor, lawyer, or something of that aspect, instill them and get them around those types of resources. Get them to meet doctors, get them to go to seminars, get them to interact in those different things so they know. And while you're doing this, even if they decide that they don't want to be a doctor and a lawyer, you have taught them how to be a good person. That raises them to be a good man, woman, husband, wife, whatever they end up being. So I think the more resources that we have, that we give our kids, and the loving and teaching them how to be good humans, they're going to be successful. And when I'm growing up, what I did have is that I had, like I said, a praying mom, and I had a dad who taught me some very good values. But the one thing I lacked is, outside of knowing one of my coaches that was in the medical field, I didn't really know a lot of people in the medical field. I just knew that I wanted to impact kids. And it was my coach at Bethany that kind of influenced me to want to be a teacher, right? He said, man, you're just so good with kids, man. Why don't you go into education? I said, Coach, I can't make no money in that. It's either the MBA or I'm going to be a doctor. Neither one of the other two worked out. But so I end up being a teacher, and it has become one of my biggest passions in life. And I really take impacting these kids' life really seriously.
For young listeners, there's listeners down here, all different ages, but for young listeners that are not sure their path, you just gave some good advice right there. Hey, I want to make all this money. I want to play in the NBA. I want to do this or that, but I just want to do good things, and I just want to give back.
Yeah.
And a great way to do that is through, like you said, you're a teacher and a coach. And what a great opportunity for you to really give back to these kids, but these kids also that can have impact on their family too, the present family. So, well, let's share with the listeners a little bit about your coaching experience. I know you were involved in some AAU, assistant coach at Minnesota community college, and then eventually you would be assistant at Richfield, and then eventually became the Richfield head boys coach. So just share a little bit
Hmm.
about some of those experiences, some of the maybe challenges, some of the successes along the way.
Well, this marks my 30th season of coaching. I started back when I was in college, my freshman year of college. I started coaching a lot of traveling in AAU and even adult leagues. And one thing I can't admit that I think a lot of coaches don't admit is that I think those first several years I was like a very immature coach because I think Magic Johnson went through this too. If you remember when he was coaching the Lakers, he came back and coached the Lakers. You have this, and he might not have had the same feeling, but you have this about me attitude where like you were still playing, and I had to realize that I'm not playing anymore. And there's other people that I'm sending out on the floor to play, right? And what that means is that they're not necessarily going to do it exactly the way that I do it. They're not going to have the same passion that I had as a player. And they might not be able to receive the different voices that I was able to hear because the coaching of way back then is entirely different from
Mm-hmm.
the coaching of today. And I think what happens with a lot of coaches that I have came across along the lines is that they can't adjust. And it's always this new generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we made them this way. They are who they are because we raised them that way. So throughout that lines, I think I really started loving coaching maybe after I want to say it was probably my sixth or seventh year of coaching when I got the opportunity to coach women's basketball.
Yeah.
And I found a newfound joy because I was naive a little bit about how to coach female athletes. And I had a great mentor in the head coach who just happened to have the same last name as me. And she taught me the ropes and how to do this. And it was probably the most magnificent experience I have ever had in my coaching career. Because the difference, I think, is that, and maybe I'm seeing it wrong, or maybe some people might see it a little differently, is that sending that female athlete out there on the court, you actually saw the things that you were trying to instill in them right away, right? And I see a lot of times when we're coaching the male athletes, because I was the same way, we always think we know already. We already think we're advanced. And I think that's sometimes why a lot of people have trouble coaching the male athlete to a certain extent. But that kind of grew me and that kind of gave me a little bit more love about coaching. And then so when I had the opportunity to come back to the high school ranks at Richfield, I started off with the lower level teams and I got to soak in what my predecessor, Jim Dimick, was doing at Richfield. This man was a mastermind, strategic, analytical coach who you like, where are you getting this freaking data from? Where did this come from? And I think we meshed a lot because I was this young, vibrant at times. Hey, coach, you need me to guard that guy? I can guard him. Or you need me to be the offensive person. Get out there and break down things because I had learned a lot from my high school coach. I had learned a lot from my coach at Bethany. I had learned a lot from my coach at St. Scholastic and the head coach at MCTC. So I was able to bring some things in. And then when it was my turn to take over as the head coach, then it made me understand the value of being an assistant coach because now you're in charge. So everything falls upon you, good or bad. So over those course of the years, I think the first maybe 6 years, there were some tough years, right? I think those years we probably won a total of maybe 50, 60 games because it was a raw group, not a very high talented group. And it took me to sit down with a great coaching staff that I have now and in the past to say, how can we make this program better? And so then we started getting involved in things like the Eastview League that you used to run, the Summer Eastview League, and it gave us an opportunity. And I meant to tell you that, and I never gave you your flowers about that because one of the reasons why we kept coming back to the Eastview League or trying to find money to afford the Eastview League is because you gave us an opportunity to play teams that we wouldn't normally play during our regular season. So we got to be able to see some diverse looking teams or some different level teams and to see where we were at and get us to prepare our guys for the regular season. And so I thought the matchups, I thought the organization of the league was just fantastic. So we look forward to coming there. So I'll be honest with you, when you left, it was not the same as it once was.
No, I appreciate
Right.
that. Yeah, that was the
Yep.
purpose of the league, to bring in a variety of teams that you usually don't play during the school year or during the season,
Mm-hmm.
and have that opportunity to play those teams summer and work with like your team. I remember Vernon Simmons
Mm-hmm.
I knew really well from St. Paul Johnson, and just work with teams regardless to like transportation was an
Yeah.
issue, cost is an issue, and kind of work with that.
Yeah.
Allow it was all about the kids. It's not about
Yeah.
me. Wasn't about the coaches. Wasn't about the fans. It was about the kids and giving them an opportunity to participate.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we grew with Richfield, I remember it like it was yesterday. My coaches and I, we went on a trip, on a coaches clinic trip to Chicago, and I didn't turn on the music. I didn't do anything. I just let them talk, and I asked them, what best quality can you bring to this coaching staff? And they opened up and they told me, and I said, here's the plan. I am going to go into the AD's office. I'm going to have a meeting with them, and I'm going to say, give us 3 years. If we're not state contenders in 3 years, get a job to somebody else, because I don't think I can fulfill that if we ain't there in 3 years. So we did some resurrecting of our team and our roster. We took some lumps in year one, and I think we might have won 9 games. So I'm like, whoo, I got 2 more years to get this together. Year two, we won 8 on, I want to say 11 games. So I'm like, oh my goodness, this is gone. All right, this might as well. It almost taking a victory lap because this third year,
Here it comes.
and the third year we got to state. We got to state and we improved our record almost 16 games. And then we got shut down by COVID. We came back the next year and went to state again and was a game away from the championship. And ever since then, we've been contenders. So it takes buy-in. It takes talent as well too, and it takes a phenomenal coaching staff, which I think I have, and it takes a good community that supports you as well too.
I think you said a couple key things there about your coaching staff. Instead of just acknowledging you, your coaching staff, as well as a community around you that kind of supports you.
Absolutely, you got to have that. You got to have that.
We'll get to the point of kind of wrapping up. So in these last few minutes, some final thoughts you want to leave with men as they continue on their journey personally or professionally.
I guess I'm going to center everything, my response, around my upbringing and my faith, right? I am a God-fearing man, and I think that my mom, my grandmother are people that kind of molded me to believe in something, right? And I'm not a type of person that pushes faith on you, but I believe you need to believe in something, right? Mm-hmm. Something of a higher power, regardless if that's Christ, that's Allah, that's Buddha, whatever you believe. You need to have some type of higher power that you believe in, so you can understand your purpose. The second thing is, and especially with men, we got to talk more, right? We have to be able to get ourselves a mentor. Even mentors need mentors. Even if you at the top of the food chain, you need somebody there that can mentor you and support you. And I don't know the direct quote, but something about versus giving somebody some food, teach him how to fish, so that he can feed others as well too. Having a good support team, having somebody that you can even vent to, pray with, just talk with. Because I think, especially in the Black culture, Black men, we hold a lot in. We hold a lot in, And then when we do have the opportunity to release, it ends up looking like we're angry about something. But we as men, we have so much, and not to say that women don't, because I had, like I said, I had one of the best mothers and grandmothers in the world, and I have one of the best wives in the world. They do a lot
They
for
do.
their families. But I do think that men, we put a lot of stuff on our shoulders. And a lot of times we have to walk into situations with a smile on our face. We got to walk into situations like we feeling good about things. And that's not always the case. So we need somebody that we can talk to, somebody that we can share things with outside of our wives, outside of our loved ones, that can just listen to different things. Because I think that's what makes us stronger. Because I think, too, I truly believe some of the best ideals in the world have not been created yet because some people just ain't talking. They just don't want to share, right?
And there it is. That's the kind of purpose of Men Pursuing More, bringing a community of men together. So that's a wrap with Omar McMillan. I want to thank you for being part of Men Pursuing More podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to Men Pursuing More podcast. Don't forget to follow us at moppincoaching.com.